What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to install a splitter on this C7 here. Alright, so very first thing you're going to do, you can see right above the fenders at all 4 points, I made a little mark from, here down to the ground. So that way when you lift it up, this 28, let's just say it's now 38. You want to make sure you lift the car up evenly. You don't want to lift the car up tilted one way or the other. So very first step, kind of mark it out, then just jack your car up, make sure you jack it up even. Obviously you then have to remove the bumper. There's several videos online of exactly like what screws and clips. If you're installing a splitter, I'm pretty sure you can handle removing a bumper, so we're not going to get into that. And the other noteworthy thing is, I don't think you need to see me drill holes and everything. You just kind of need to know where to drill holes to attach like clevises and brackets and all that stuff. Also, this car does have aftermarket coolers in the sides. Poking around online, there's a couple kits. I know G-Speed, LGR, they have a very popular kit. Theirs seems to hang a bit lower, so as you'll see, the splitter with the tunnels, they are not our big, deep tunnels. These ones fit with no cutting, trimming. They clear everything under here. So if you get the tunnel option, it should still fit pretty much any aftermarket coolers if you have them in the bumper corner here. Now, moving on to brackets. You're going to want to drill a hole for this clevis right here, about 1 inch up from the bottom and maybe from the edge, 1.25 inches, and then about 1.25 inches in from this bend right here, and that'll get you right in the ballpark. Now that will be, you will have to cut and trim a clearance hole right here. This is from a previous setup the customer had on the car, which used this hole here. We opted to go wider because some of these cars do have like parking cameras right in the front here, which would interfere with this one. So that's kind of why we opted to go out wider. And then you pass a 25 or 30 millimeter M6 through the center. The kit will come with these spacers right here. That just pushes this out just far enough to clear the bumper. You can see how the customer's original setup didn't stick out far enough and they had to hack up the bumper, so yours should be nice and clean like this right here. Next clevis you will add will be on this little flat spot right here. On the passenger side here, anything I found online, this is pretty open. Just kind of dead center of this like flat spot and you should be good. You can reach your hand up in behind here to get the nut on. So again, it's another M6 by 25 millimeter that goes through. I put a washer on this because, again, the original setup was kind of hacked up a bit and there was a kind of a large hole here, so that washer just kind of spreads the load. You probably won't need a washer here, but just keep that in mind. Now, the driver's side might be a bit different. Certain pictures I saw online had nothing here. Some had like a little bracket with like a stud sticking out of it. So if you do have anything here, it might be a very easy like relocate or move, or there is enough, adjustment in these splitter rods where you could maybe like offset it a little bit. So there might be a touch variance in here on your car, but it shouldn't be anything too big. All right, and then the last clevis you're gonna have to install on the car will be dead center here. Just dead center between the beam and pretty close with flush with the bottom of the beam, and that should get you in the ballpark. Again, height shouldn't matter too much because the splitter rods have that much adjustment in them. And while we're in here, I feel like if you have a Corvette, you're very familiar with what nut certs are, but if you're not, it's basically like a threaded rivet, as you can see here. Now these do require a install tool. I'll put a link to this down below. I think it's only about like 20 bucks. But again, if you have a Corvette, get yourself one of these because you're probably going to be using it quite often. I'm also going to put a picture up. I did have a customer have one of these pull out on another car. Make sure you get a proper squeeze and squish out on these. But if they're installed properly, you should be good to go. Now the kit will come with one short rod, and the short rod is in the center here. And if we're looking at just the rod, don't worry about how far in or out the rod ends are. You'll have two, we'll call them like middle length rods. The middle length rods will be the ones that go on, the front outers here. And the longest of the rods are the ones that come all the way out on the side here. Now, some trimming you may have to do, clearance around here for this rod to go through. This rod is hidden behind the bumper. These two obviously come out the front of the bumper, and you'll see our lift up lock up set up a little bit later. Pretty neat feature for our splitters, but we'll go over that as well. But at this moment, that is about it for anything you have to do to the car. So at this point, we can grab the splitter blade and kind of get the blade up under the car. Now, one quick note on the blade. This hole, and this hole are hard points in the splitter, and they will get the 5/16 flathead bolts. And what you can do is you can pre-install the other clevises on the top side of the splitter. There will not be a hole in this area or this area, and as you see, we'll go over that in a minute as to why. Those 4 holes in the back will be in the splitter. They are machined holes and should line up with the holes on the bottom of your rad support here. So what we're going to do right now, we'll just get the splitter up. We'll get those 4 bolts in, and we could probably use a rod or 2 just to kind of hang the front of it. All right, so if we hop under the car here, here's your low rad support, subframe and everything. The M6x50s with a large washer, and you can see how the kit comes with these machined aluminum spacers here. Now the spacers kind of have like a counter bore on one side and are just smooth on the other. The smooth side goes down, the counter bore is there, so it kind of clears the nutsert that is already. Now these are OEM installed nutserts on the bottom of the rad support here. So that way it's not just sitting on the nutsert, it kind of will clear the nutsert and sit against the metal bar right there. So I'm still loose at the moment. You might have to like fish them in a little bit, but it shouldn't be too hard to get them in and lined up. And once you get them in and lined up, just get them started. At this moment, we're not gonna clamp anything down because once these are in, it's an M6 bolt, but it's a 5/16, or call it an M8 hole. So that way there's a little bit of like adjustability here. So that way you can make sure the splitter is just kind of where you want it, forward, backwards, left and right, so there is a little bit of adjustability built in. All right, so now that the 4 in the back are snug, these are just kind of in place to hold the front from falling. And you can see how, we can still kind of get some movement out of the splitter before we snug it all down. What we want to do is make sure we're like square to the car. So you can do something like measure off of like a known hard point, like the rad support out. So on this side, we'll say like 20 3/8 if we come square out about, and about 20 1/2. So half of an eighth is like a 1/16. It's at some point, how accurate can you get? But that's actually pretty good right off the bat. So let's see, it looks like that moved it like a tiny bit. So there you go. So there's your left and right, forward and backwards. Because the core material of the splitter is cut on a CNC machine, you can maybe do something like trailing edge of the core, maybe to like the control arm face or something, or trying to do this one-handed. Up to like one of these holes right here, so we'll say about like 8, and also about like 8. So anyways, any little tweaks you need to do, once you're kind of happy with it, then just tighten these down so it doesn't move on you, because then we're going to do bumper on and air dam. We don't want this moving after this point. All right guys, so now you can see that all the rods are in since all the clevises were installed. Pre-install the clevis on the splitter through the 3 hard points. The only hole you're going to have to drill will be these ones. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, reason why we're not drilling this one, if you have some sort of OEM or aftermarket oil cooler in your bumper corner here, exactly where this lands could interfere, because you can see we're pretty close on this one. If we pre-drilled a hole and we were off and you had interference, that's kind of a problem. So you will have to drill this one. And then other thing you got to do, this is your time to set all of your rods, because you can get to them very easily, or at least the center one and these outer ones, because they're behind the bumper. Now you can see we're at like a 1.7 nose down. because I took measurements on the wheels, I know we're up pretty even, so that 1.7 is pretty good. And that 28 inches is now 44 and a half. And some quick math in my head, I think that's 16 and a half inches the car has came up. So effectively, if ground is at 16 and a half, and we're shooting for like 3 inches of ground clearance, we should be like 19 and a half. And if we look at it, we might be a touch low. So anyways, so that's pretty close to 3. We will come up a tiny bit with the rods. That might put us at like a 1.5 or something like that. But so you can see, like, if you put everything in place and you're in position along that back edge there, it's like you should have a good ride height along with a good angle. So everything should kind of be pretty easy from this point on. Also, good time to note, we do a proper leading edge radius underneath of our splitters as well. So yeah, so what we're gonna do, we'll tweak with this height and angle a tiny bit, lock our splitter rods down, then we're on to basically air dam at that point. All right, so now that all of our rods are in, locked down, I'm happy with angle and height and all that stuff. Every single rod, top and bottom, has this little quick release setup. So just pull the little clevis pin, cotter pin, clevis pin, and bring them down. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, in order to get the rods to line up, this slot is, you know, tilted to the side. You can kind of see when you tighten this bolt down here with the nut behind it, it has to line up with the clevis on the splitter. So don't install it straight up and down or you won't get the angle you need. Same on this one. So with those two rods folded down, we can now put the bumper on and we'll start marking out for the air dam. All right, so now that your bumper is on and snapped into place, don't worry about this section of air dam. I just kind of jumped ahead a little bit. But what you're gonna need is some sort of square. You can use an actual square. I'm actually using the rubber blocks that come with the jack system. You can use a 2x4, whatever you use, you just wanna make sure it's square. And what you're gonna do, touch it to your lip and put a little mark kind of right at the bottom, so that way you know you're square below the lip. I'm using a silver Sharpie because I know that I can, you know, wash it off later. You can wipe off silver Sharpies with stuff called Prep-Sol, which is like a very mild acetone. You could use acetone, but I'd be careful with it. If you can't clean it off, use some tape or some sort of like grease pen or something you can clean off. But either way, you got to kind of mark a line along the whole air dam around and to the side. All right, and while we're marking out the air dam, you can see that we removed these OEM, you know, spats or tire blockers. Oops, they said something like that. Now, the reason we are removing these is, I'll put a link down below to our wind tunnel video. We do have wind tunnel data on these. And if it was my car, I would not put these on it. They made, so all these data points are at 100 miles an hour. They were 20 pounds of downforce total, but 21 pounds of drag. So that's less than a 1-to-1 ratio on those OEM spats or tire blockers, which is very bad. When we removed them, the efficiency of the whole car actually went up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run our tire deflector and side plate setup. Now, we didn't have a set of these available when we went to the wind tunnel, but we have ran this exact setup on other cars. On my GT350, which is in the trailer at the moment, our side plate setup, 35 pounds of total downforce, but only 14 pounds of drag, where remember OEM was 20, downforce 21 drag. The OEM side plates added 26 pounds on the front, where our side plates were 50 pounds on the front and 14 pounds of drag. So much more efficient, better setup here than the OEMs. And then we're also going to put our canards back on the car. Since this guy has heat exchangers here, we will have to get a little bit crafty with how we mount them, but you know, a normal C7 won't have any of that, and you just go right to the bumper. They were 20 pounds of downforce total, which matches the OEM tire blockers, but they were only 6 pounds of drag, where the OEMs were 21. So that's like what, a 3, 6, 12, 18, a little over 3-to-1 efficiency ratio on canards, which is about right. Our side plates were about 2.5-to-1, where the OEM blockers were less than 1-to-1. So we're gonna do a canard our side plate setup. So that's kind of why you know, we're marking out the air dam there. So I know there's a lot of numbers at you, but hopefully it all kind of makes sense. So let's get this air dam installed. All right, so now that we have the splitter up on the horse, the kit's gonna come with a bunch of these 3D printed nylon L's and 2 of these brackets right here. You can see this one's already in place. Now, those lines that we made should line up pretty darn close to this 3D printed bracket, right? So that's where we're going to go ahead, do the tape, stick them down in position, and then we will put a few rivets in it just to kind of make sure. That's what helps the air dam kind of take the shape of the lip. Now, we're going to have 2 options. If you have the, I believe this is the Z06 lip. Now, the car owner told me this is an aftermarket piece that is the exact shape of the OEM. But if your lip looks like this, you'll get this in it. There is basically a base model C7 lip that doesn't have these points on it. It's very much more rounded. There will be a selectable option where if you have that lip, you won't get this, but you'll get extra of these guys, and you basically just make that like gentle curve. So what we're about to do will be the same regardless of what lip you have, but you might get slightly different stuff as well. And then last thing to note is because it is VHB tape, the splitter kit will come with some alcohol prep pads, so that way wherever you decide to stick everything, you can kind of clean it up, make sure you get a pretty good stick. Because again, these ones will have rivets physically holding it. These ones, you know, they just need to kind of hold the air dam, you know, a couple along, because it also gets supported by the lip of the bumper. So it's not like this thing needs to be super stiff or anything. So we're just going to go around, knock that out, and then as soon as we get to the end, I'll show you how to cut it to size. Or if you kind of keep those OEM side blockers on, you would just kind of come straight out pretty much to the edge. Now these are 5/32 hole, and a quick note when drilling these, this is just a regular metal drill bit. You don't want to go through the entire splitter, just go through the top layer of carbon, because there is a structural foam core in here. So you'll feel it once you kind of like break through and then stop. You don't want to go all the way. All right, so I got the 3D printed mandrels in place, a couple rivets in them. I'm coming around, picking up where I left off on this side. I probably have them a bit denser than I need, like right here where the overlap is. Now the overlap, you know, the forward more one is on top of the back one, so that way air can't really slip between the two. Now, here's the cool thing about these really thin carbon air dams. They're basically like a carbon veneer, if you will. We have this piece here that's going to finish out the side, and to cut them, these are just pretty basic regular scissors. And it actually leaves a surprisingly clean edge. I'll clean off that little bit of Sharpie mark. Now I should be inset of this piece the tiniest bit, but not much. Give them a press. And there you go. Air dam around the corner is done. So now I just need to do the other half, and we're going back on. So I think I skipped talking about the air dam real quick. What is the center section will have holes in the bottom of it, and this edge is a bit taller than this edge. They start at 2 inches even in the center and then taper down to 1.5 inches as they go. So and on top of that, if you did have it backwards, the holes are offset enough where you would be like way beyond center line, and it should jump out that you have it, you know, you have these reversed. And then to get the air dam started, these quick nuts just go on the back side. right? And then once you kind of do all of them, it'll just kind of take that shape. All right, guys, so here it is. Air dam is done. You know, virtually zero gap right here. I don't, since these are original mock-up pieces, this bit of the air dam only had holes in it, but the production pieces will have a little bit of a slot, so that way you can actually, you know, make sure this gap gets closed up. Alternatively, what you could do is maybe like attach the, you know, the 3D printed mandrel to the air dam, get your gap at 0, and then kind of stick it down, as long as it lines up pretty good with that line you made to your air dam. I ended up putting tabs maybe every like 4 inches, and it feels pretty solid. So the reason we're doing the air dam this way is probably the biggest variable on any car is like the outline of an air dam right here. So we can't really make a mold of like this and have something like perfectly formed to it, because you would then need to have this exact lip on your car. So this air dam setup kind of allows the kit to land on, you know, more cars, more setups basically. Other thing, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, we could cut this air dam quite a bit taller. So when your splitter's on the car, you could come all the way up here to the bumper. We have a 3D scan of this. The only thing that would kind of really change would be the 3D printed piece to take this form right here will be slightly different shaped. And you can just kind of come around like nice contoured to the end rather than like a hard edge right here. So again, since we make everything for this kit in-house, we can make those tweaks. I'll try and have selectable options to cover more of the popular common things, I'll call it. But if you don't see like some setup exactly like you need, please just email us through our contact form and we can come up with something. All right, so now that air dam is done, bumper is pretty much on the car from this point on. So any little screws or clips, like the plastic shroud, you know, has a few screws in it. You could, if you want, start like attaching the top and everything. The one tricky part of this kit is getting this rod hooked up. Now I've done it a few times during mock-up, getting the splitter on and off. You can reach in here with like needle nose pliers, get the pin and the cotter pin in. It's really not too bad. Now depending how on and off you want to make your splitter, you know, if you did kind of want to like clearance this so you can just get your hand in there or something, that's kind of up to you. But yeah, so we're going back on with the splitter, hopefully for the last time. All right, so we're going on with the splitter. The rod right there, pretty easy to get to because you can get your hand in there. And again, depending on exactly where you drilled that hole earlier, you know, just reach your hand in, you're good. Outers, obviously, super easy. Now, the one tricky bit about all this is if you run these, whatever, factory wheel arches, we'll call them, this little piece right down at the bottom is the only screw that's gonna effectively be like impossible to get to. So I'll show you on the other side what I did. So you got your 3 factory screws here. I added one down here to tie this into the fender liner. And now since we have tunnels on the car, what we're gonna do, the kit is gonna come with a few extra J-clips and screws. We're gonna drill a hole right here and put a J-clip into the fender liner to kind of like lock this whole corner together. Now, if you don't run a fender liner, or this particular car probably could benefit from some sort of like exit because he has the coolers right in the bumper. This is where it might get a little bit customized for your setup. It looks like this fender liner fell off before or was moving or something, because this is definitely tire rub right here. So again, in here, you might have to, you know, just make sure all your clips and screws are in place. And if you have to add an extra screw, like I said, the kit will come with like a few extras so you can kind of like tie up this area. Real quick to show you, and to show you how much of the fender liner I cut off, pretty much where the fender liner, pretty much where the OEM fender liner just kind of starts going forward. It's kind of where I hacked it. Again, passenger side on this particular car, you can see it was pretty beat up. Driver side was much better, so you can see the cut line like right there. All right, so as you can see, this side is all tidied up and done. all firmed up in this corner. You can see the tip of our J-clip poking out through here with the screw. There is one hiding behind there as well. This little flap here, I just decided to zip tie it just so it won't kind of like come back and contact the tire pretty easy. So I'm gonna do all that to the other side real quick, and then we have our rear finish panels and we're done. One thing I decided I'll show you now that, you know, all the corners are locked in, those rods are good, those rods are good, we got to do the center rod. So kind of like a longer set of needle nose is kind of what I've been doing, and we'll just do this real time so you can kind of see it's really not too bad. The earlier when you set the heights of all your rods, it's like it should be pretty close to where it needs to be anyways. We're in between the clevis. We just got to kind of move it around a little bit and get the pin in. I also have a little bit of a hook tool, so what I'm going to do is kind of pull it where it needs to be. And with my knee, I'm kind of like lifting the splitter a little bit. There you go, you're in. And then clevis pin comes in. Boom, done. We'll turn it so it faces up. There you go. So, you know, not too bad at all. All right, so we're back under the car, and the kit's gonna come with these two carbon panels, which go from the trailing edge of the splitter to the subframe here. Now, while we're under here, you can see I already installed the J-clip. If you tighten these up on earlier steps, go ahead, loosen them up a bit, because you can see that it's slotted. And your initial layup of this, you're going to have to mark the hole right here to drill the tunnel. That angle was working. You know, pop it off. You're going to have to drill a hole somewhere right around here. Again, we don't drill that one just because your splitter might be a little forward or backwards with how it lands on these holes here. But once you do get that drilled and put the J-clip on, it goes on top of the splitter tunnel. Kind of pivot it in and, you know, just leave it in there loose at the moment. We're going to get this side in, tighten these down, 3 bolts across the back, and that is it. Finally done. Alright guys, so there you go. Now you can see the rear finish panel is installed. So you got a pretty nice smooth transition along the splitter up to here, close up this gap. If you want to do anything beyond there, that's on you at that point. Alright, so now splitter is on. I finally get to show you what I think is the coolest feature of this splitter. It's something that we do on, I'm pretty sure, I think like every splitter kit that we manufacture, but it's what we call the lift up lockup feature. So I'll show you that right now. So the splitter kits are going to come with these extra clevis pins with tags. And again, why we do this type of air dam, because it can kind of slide along the factory bumper cover. So you obviously want to get the splitter as close to the ground as you can for maximum performance. But if it was rigidly mounted, if you hit like apex curbing or under hard braking, the splitter hits the track, all that force just goes into the splitter. But with our compressible splitter rods, you can see that the splitter will give upwards some amount. And if you pull it up enough, you can put the pin in it to lock it up. This makes it really nice loading the car on and off of a trailer. It gives you about an extra inch of ground clearance right here, which loading a car with a splitter on a trailer is actually quite a lot. So this is going to be just standard. Every splitter gets this set up. You get to the track, just kind of pull some tension off it, let your splitter down, and you're good to go. Alright, so we're loading onto the trailer with the lockup. So you can see we got pretty good clearance. Now, you still probably need some sort of like extra ramp, but you don't need anything crazy long because that little extra clearance should be nice. Say hi? Hi. I I think the one spot it might get close might be like on this little lip right here, but let's see what we get. Oh yeah, plenty. So like not even really close, so that was pretty cool. All right, so real quick before we wrap up, at this point you can see this customer opted for our canards and our side plates set up. So you can kind of see what they look like. Now they will be add-on options. They are not standard with the kit, but if you want to add them, it'll be a very easily selectable option. And we also did the scuff plates, right? So that'll be another, so there's 5 across it. So just wanted to show you that real quick. So if you do get those options, you can see what you're getting. All right guys, so there you go. C7 splitter kit is all done. So link to our website and this kit will be in the video description below. As always guys, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.